The idea behind trip planning is to design the most effective, efficient, safe, and legal route between 2 points. A well-thought-out trip plan can mean a savings of time and money for you and your motor carrier. A good plan can also mean a safe trip for you and the load you are hauling. If you have a solid plan before hitting the road, you are better able to devote all of your attention to driving. The 5 basic steps of trip planning include: 1. Making sure paperwork is up to date. Have proper freight documentation, current hours of service records, and proper permits and licenses. 2. Selecting the route. Remember, many variables are involved, including vehicle restrictions, cargo restrictions, traffic conditions, weather, and your safety. 3. Estimating time and planning for stops. Plan to meet the scheduled deadline, but consider driver and vehicle factors as well as weather and road conditions. 4. Estimating fuel use and fuel stops. And 5. Estimating trip expenses. Understand the length and nature of the trip, what conditions to expect on the road, and plan for the unexpected. After driving, paperwork is probably the largest task a driver deals with on a daily basis. Making sure you have all necessary and accurate paperwork before you hit the road is essential to planning an efficient and profitable trip. Generally, the paperwork you should carry with you falls under 3 categories: driver, cargo, and vehicle. As the driver of a commercial motor vehicle, or CMV, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, or FMCSRs, require you to carry certain documents to verify you are a qualified driver. You are required to have a valid driver's license to operate a motor vehicle. You must carry this license with you when operating a motor vehicle. The class of license you must hold is based on the type of vehicle you are operating. Each motor carrier must require every driver to record his or her duty status for each 24-hour period. You must complete the record of duty status by using an electronic logging device, or ELD, or by using a paper log. The record must be legible and kept current to the time shown for the last change of duty status. You must submit the original record of duty status to your motor carrier within 13 days of completion. You must have in your possession a record for the last 7 consecutive days as well as for the current day. The records must be available for inspection while you are on duty. Paperwork regarding the freight you are hauling should be in proper order before you begin your trip. This ensures the safe and accurate delivery of goods to the appropriate party. The bill of lading is the document used in transactions between a shipper and carrier. There are 3 distinct and important functions served by the bill of lading. 1. It is a receipt issued by the carrier to a shipper for goods received for transportation. 2. It is a contract naming the parties involved, the rate charged for transportation, and the agreement regarding the carrier's liability in the event of damage or loss of goods. And 3. It serves as documentary evidence of title to the goods. Unless specifically instructed otherwise, the carrier's duty is to deliver the shipment to the consignee named on the bill of lading. Possession of an original bill of lading, properly endorsed, indicates title to the goods. Paperwork regarding vehicle operations is completed throughout a trip. Accuracy is important. Next, we will discuss paperwork that is required by regulation and/or law. At the end of your day's work on the vehicle you operated, you need to review the condition of your vehicle. If during this post-trip inspection of your vehicle, you discover any defects or deficiencies which could affect the safe operation of your vehicle or cause a mechanical breakdown, you must complete a written report, commonly referred to as a Driver Vehicle Inspection Report, DVIR. Though the regulations do not mandate that you carry this document in your vehicle, some motor carriers require that the DVIR stay with the vehicle as part of its vehicle maintenance policy. A trip report or individual vehicle mileage report, or IVMR, is used to record trip information, including, but not limited to, date of trip, starting and ending, trip origin and destination, route of travel and/or beginning and ending odometer reading, total trip miles, and unit number or vehicle identification number. The trip report must be accurate, as this information is used by the carrier to file International Fuel Tax Agreement, or IFTA, quarterly fuel tax returns, and International Registration Plan, or IRP, annual vehicle registration renewals. In the event the carrier is audited, the auditor will examine trip reports and fuel receipts for accuracy. You should also complete a trip cost report. It tracks expenses incurred during the course of a trip. A trip cost report includes detailed information on fuel purchases, brokerage fees, permit fees, tolls, and scale fees. Many factors go into the selection of an appropriate route. The shortest route may not always be the best route. Terrain, weather, traffic, road construction, and vehicle and cargo restrictions all play a part in selecting an appropriate route. You should know what route you plan to take and identify available alternate routes you can use before you depart. Being able to read and understand a road map is the first step in selecting an efficient route. The road map is a necessary tool, helping you determine routes and locate specific destinations. Essential map reading skills you need to be proficient in include locating the starting point, intermediate stops, and the destination, laying out your route and an alternate route, estimating point-to-point mileage using the map scale, reading map symbols. The majority of maps are set on a box or grid pattern with letters along the top and bottom and numbers along the sides of the map. A box or key within the map lists destinations, cities, towns, streets, and where to find them within the grid system. All maps include a scale. The scale lists how many inches represent a given number of miles. Map scales are good for figuring a rough mileage estimate. Mileage charts give a better idea of true distance. Symbols are also included on all maps. Symbols represent everything from the size of a community to where to find a rest area. Symbols vary from map to map, and all maps include a legend explaining the symbols used. There are two types of maps most drivers rely on: highway maps and city maps. Highway maps show an entire state or region. They sometimes include major cities in some detail. Features vary depending on the map, but all include major routes, road types, toll roads and freeways, population centers, and railroad crossings. Highway maps are best used to locate major highways and routes for long-distance travel. City maps provide the greatest detail. Major street names are readable, and secondary streets can often be located on these types of maps. Keep in mind that maps do not include information on delays caused by road construction, poor weather conditions, or heavy traffic. This information is available via the Internet from several sources, including the Federal Highway Administration, or FHWA. Many states also provide trucker-specific travel information, such as rest area locations and travel route restrictions, on their Department of Transportation websites. In many states, This information may be accessed by typing the state name and 511 into an Internet search engine. The use of an electronic navigation system, also referred to as a global positioning system or GPS, can make trip planning easier for the professional driver if the driver uses the correct device properly. Not all devices are the same. The device you may use in your personal vehicle is not the one you should be using in your CMV. You need to use a device that is designed specifically for truck drivers. So, what's the difference? In addition to general route information, a GPS designed for truck drivers includes information on low overpasses, bridges, route restrictions, upcoming scales, and traffic issues such as congestion and/or accidents. Though a GPS designed for truck drivers may be more expensive, it is well worth the investment. Use of a device that does not provide this additional information could put you in a situation that you do not want to be in, such as operating on a restricted route or approaching a low bridge overpass that you did not anticipate. Before beginning your trip, you will need to type in all relevant information about your vehicle so the GPS can provide you with the appropriate route, including your vehicle's length, width, and height, your axle weights, and hazardous materials you are transporting, if applicable. Once you are on the road, follow the route recommended by the GPS, but always be alert to and obey all traffic signs and advisories, such as low bridge overpasses, weight limitations, detour signs. Also, do not be totally dependent on the directions provided. Use common sense. Though the GPS provides a great deal of information, sometimes conditions change, and the GPS may not include the most current information. If your GPS does not provide automatic updates of the maps, be sure to update your maps often so you have the most current information. It's a good idea to use paper maps in conjunction with your GPS. They continue to work even when there is no reception. Plus, a trucker's atlas is full of great information regarding the laws of each state and scale locations. Another factor you need to consider when planning your trip is locating a safe place to refuel, take a break, or stop at the end of your day. Map out 2 or 3 safe locations for each rest or refueling stop. In addition, make note of other locations where it is safe to stop in case your first choices are unavailable or you need to stop unexpectedly. Even the best planned trip can run into some unplanned delays and/or problems. Issues such as restricted routes and weight limits on roads and/or bridges must be dealt with while on the road. Your vehicle must stay within legal limits. Federal requirements outlined in 49 CFR 658.17 are as follows. The maximum gross vehicle weight, or GVW, is 80,000 pounds, except where a lower GVW is dictated by the bridge formula. The maximum gross weight on any one axle, including any one axle of a group of axles or a vehicle, is 20,000 pounds. And the maximum gross weight on tandem axles is 34,000 pounds. Vehicles are not allowed on interstate highways if the gross weight on 2 or more consecutive axles exceeds the limitations prescribed in the bridge formula. The bridge formula limits the weight on groups of axles in order to reduce the risk of damage to highway bridges. Allowable weight depends on the number of axles a vehicle has and the distance between those axles. However, the single or tandem axle weight limits supersede bridge formula limits for all axles not more than 96 inches apart. Each state has its own weight limitations. Be aware of the regulations for the states you travel through. Also, keep in mind that weight limits may be posted on individual roads or bridges. Vehicles exceeding the posted weights are prohibited. Communities often designate certain roads as truck routes, in many cases prohibiting trucks from operating outside of these routes. At railroad highway grade crossings, you need to be alert and always expect a train. You must ensure you have appropriate crossing and ground clearance to safely cross the tracks. Never cross railroad tracks unless you are sure you can completely cross the tracks without stopping. This includes when crossing multiple tracks. Remember, in addition to being unsafe, stopping on the tracks is illegal. Railroad highway grade crossings may have vehicle restrictions due to a low ground clearance or high center. If this is the case, you will need to plan on taking a different route so you don't get stuck on the tracks. Estimating the amount of time a trip will take is necessary for planning stops, determining arrival time, and meeting scheduled deliveries or pickups. Perhaps most importantly, you need to estimate time to comply with the hours of service regulations. Under these regulations, located in Part 395 of the FMCSRs, the driver of a property-carrying CMV may not drive more than 11 hours following 10 consecutive hours off-duty, beyond the 14th consecutive hour after coming on duty following 10 consecutive hours off-duty. If more than 8 hours of driving time have passed without an interruption in driving status of at least 30 consecutive minutes, or after being on duty more than 60 or 70 hours in any 7 or 8 consecutive days. Proper trip planning will help ensure you do not go over the hours of service limits. Consideration of all the listed limits is very important in the trip planning equation. Trip planning should include a plan for parking overnight. Current studies on the shortage of available parking for CMVs show that many drivers are allowing 30 to 60 minutes to find parking. They are shutting down earlier to be certain they do not run too close to their driving or on-duty limits. Many drivers estimate 2 hours for every 100 miles they are traveling. For longer trips, that may be a bit too aggressive. It may be more accurate if you begin with the estimate of 2 hours for every 100 miles, but then add in extra time for things like vehicle inspections, fuel stops, and required breaks. If you drive mainly in the western states, you may be able to average better than this figure. However, it's important to understand that this is an average. If you drive 75 miles per hour sometimes and 55 miles per hour other times, you may be averaging only 60 miles per hour. So don't plan your entire trip at 75 miles per hour just because that's what the posted speed limit is in the state you are running. This holds true, conversely, if you are running mainly in the Northeast. Even though most posted speed limits in that area are 55 miles per hour, you may only average 45 miles per hour or 50 miles per hour due to increased traffic and congestion. Keep in mind weather, traffic, road construction, and other conditions which could affect your trip time. Remember, no driver is able to drive the maximum speed limit at all times. Fuel usage estimates are needed to plan fuel stops. The first step in estimating fuel usage is to determine the range of the vehicle. To find the range of a vehicle, multiply the tank capacity, in gallons, by the miles per gallon the vehicle delivers. Next, you need to look at the route you will be taking. Average fuel usage is based on several factors, including: in most cases, highway driving allows for a consistent speed and the potential to maximize miles per gallon. The stopping and starting that is characteristic of driving within a city or town lowers a vehicle's fuel efficiency. Slowing and stopping, whether on a highway or in a city or town, lowers a vehicle's miles per gallon. And engine idling can dramatically affect fuel efficiency. On average, 1 gallon of fuel is burned for each hour an engine idles. Fuel efficiency should also be taken into account when trip planning. There are also factors, conditions, that may not occur on a daily basis that you should keep in mind when selecting a route and estimating fuel use, including: on average, each hour of idling burns a gallon of fuel. Idling during an overnight stop can burn up to 10 gallons of fuel. Higher speeds can have a negative effect on a vehicle's fuel usage. Many motor carriers have a policy that limits vehicle speed to between 62 and 68 miles per hour to maximize fuel efficiency. Driving up and down steep grades can burn additional fuel, having a negative effect on a vehicle's fuel usage. And driving into the wind can also have a negative effect on a vehicle's fuel usage. Estimating the amount of money a trip will cost means planning for food, layovers, fuel, tolls, and overnight stops. When estimating expenses, consider the distance to be traveled, time the trip will take, and possibility that emergency funds may be needed. Items topping the expense list include meals, layovers, tolls, rest stops, and fuel stops. In an emergency, you may need funds for towing, a service call, or an unexpected layover. You should now be able to describe the paperwork required for you, the driver, your cargo, and your vehicle. Discuss considerations when selecting your route, along with how to read a map and use a global positioning system. List vehicle and cargo restrictions. Describe things you should consider when estimating your trip time, and list conditions that can affect fuel usage. Now it's time to take the course exam. This exam includes 10 questions. Be aware, if you close the exam before finishing, your answers will not be saved. You may take this exam more than once. Your highest score will be reported. To begin the course exam, select Next.